Welcome to the Holistic Health Show, where the worlds of science and spirituality converge to illuminate a path towards total well-being. Join us as we embark on a journey to bridge the gap between Western medicine and complementary therapies. Hello, welcome back to the Holistic Health Show. We have another great episode for you today, and I'm excited to introduce Jaspreet joining us all the way from the UK. Now, she is the Whole Body Pharmacist. So she's going to tell us a little bit more about what that means, but she's a holistic and clinical prescribing pharmacist. Welcome to the show. I can't wait to get started with you, Jaspreet.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy. I'm really grateful to be here and thank you for giving me time. So the Whole Body Pharmacist basically stems from myself being in clinical, normal community pharmacy, qualified here in the UK. I have been for 15 years. I then started to prescribe after undertaking an extension course. I started prescribing amongst the community and writing prescriptions and doing diagnosis. And I've been doing that for the last 10 years. Basically, over the last 15 years, I realized that a lot of conventional medication doesn't actually make people better. So that's when I started questioning what I've been doing for all of these years and started to really look into some alternative therapies, but not completely separately. I find that a lot of holistic therapies are holistic only, whereas I have the added benefit of doing the clinical as well, being able to see red flags of really major illnesses. And so I still have the scientific side there and with the alternative holistic side as well. The problem that we have is that we use it for everyday care, not just the emergency. And that's where I think the system is a little bit broken. Number one, that puts pretty much all of the accountability of your health on your doctor or on your prescriber. You're effectively going to that person and saying, maybe I need to change my diet or exercise or lose some weight, but I don't think I can do that right now. So can you prescribe for me instead? And that's not really the way that medicine should be used. And that way doesn't really give you the results either. We just mask the problem. It's still there. The root is still there. We're just not pulling it out.
And I say this or I've said this in quite a few previous episodes as well. And anyone who knows me will hear me kind of, I guess, not really rant on about it, but I repeat it a lot. Because I was a paramedic in Canada. I've always been interested in the holistic side of things. I grew up with that as my life, but I was always really interested in medicine as well. And then I would be in the ambulance. You have your regulars, and your regular patients is what I mean. And they keep coming back because they don't make any changes other than adding medicines to their bag. And when patients come in the ambulance, they're always, or when you go into a house as a paramedic to see a patient, you always gather up their medications. And sometimes people are coming out literally bags. And it's because they're taking, just as an example, something for high blood pressure. And then they're taking something else because the high blood pressure the medication gives them other symptoms. So it's like a domino effect, but they're not changing their lifestyle. And it sounds like this is kind of what you're getting at, is there's a lot more we can do to actually remedy the issue and make you a healthier human instead of slapping on this Band-Aid in the form of a tablet or an injection.
Exactly. And the thing is, when we say it that way, of course, we have to take some actions, right? There's some things that we can definitely do to look after ourselves. But I also understand that sometimes often there's cases of people who just are not in the right mental space to be able to take on that accountability or responsibility for themselves. They may look well enough, but there's something inside which is causing them to kind of self-sabotage, We're really complex. We're multi-layered, and we need an approach of care which takes the community. And I think that's something that we miss now in the UK for sure. Every day, patients say to me, I don't know who my doctor is. I don't have a regular doctor. I see a different one every time. We're still blessed to have a free healthcare system here. I'd much rather that we have that than it go completely. So I'm grateful for what we have. But when everybody expects a level of healthcare up here and kind of wants us as the practitioners to take care of them all, without any responsibility for themselves. It's hard. You're going to get a broken system, right? Yeah. So, yeah, we're multifaceted, and it's going to take a lot of unraveling. We've got to go right the way back to figure out how we can soon start to move forward, because we're not getting the results that we want. Medication is not going to fix our problems, unfortunately.
And so how are you adding this holistic perspective on? Because, you've said the science, but also you're exploring or you have explored alternative therapies. So how are you able to take that into your daily work as a pharmacist?
I've been working in a really lovely pharmacy for the last 7 years, and I was very, very lucky to have the opportunity to incorporate every service that I wish to. I kind of had the autonomy and the freedom to go in and say, okay, this is what I would like to do, and this is the clinic that I would like to run. I've been raised in a traditional Indian family, and really that's where a lot of my holistic side comes from. Because
Mm.
the remedies that my mum used on me when I was a child, they worked, which is different from what I see now. So, and that's the reason why I have faith in alternative therapies. So Ayurvedic, traditional Chinese medicine, somatic therapy. I kind of feel like all of these things put together and more, acupuncture, etc., etc. There's so many different modalities. I feel like they work because we take into account the physical body, the energy body, and then we use the emotions to connect the two. And so when you take into account those three different areas, only then can we really get to the root cause and start to deal with the issue. For an example, today, I spoke to somebody and their symptoms are just so vague, but they just don't feel right. And they've had so many tests, and there's no result from the test which shows that there's a problem. But as I was speaking to that person, it was quite clear that there seems to be some kind of emotional issue which is causing the symptoms. And because the tests are not showing anything, she'll be stuck. She'll be stuck for a long time. So that's where I think it's important to be able to incorporate different modalities. And I'm a qualified somatic therapist, and I'm a trauma informed practitioner. So taking into account the fact that people suffer with trauma from a young age, and that will shape what physical symptoms they could potentially get. It's really helpful to be able to put these things together and not just think, okay, you have high blood pressure because your diet's bad. No, not necessarily. I know a lot of people who have got a really bad diet, but they don't all have high blood pressure. It can be caused by a whole history of complex trauma, which just doesn't allow for the blood pressure to go back to normal. So, with that in mind, yeah, I've been practicing this for the last 7 years in a lovely central London branch. And I found that actually one of the biggest things which was transformative for my patients was just giving them time, just listening to them.
It's incredible just to have a listening ear, and again, I truly am appreciative of the Western system. So when I say things like I'm about to say, I'm not having a go, but doctors are only given 15-minute time slots to figure out what's wrong, to solve a puzzle, right? How? You can't have, like you said, you can't build a relationship. You don't know your doctor. You're not seeing the same doctor in a lot of cases. And so they can't build this puzzle, of your life, of your body, of your history. And it's just not possible. And to have someone listen to you, to feel heard and validated makes a huge difference to even how you approach your own health, I think. Because when you walk out of a doctor's office and you think, well, they didn't care. I wasn't able to say everything that I was thinking or feeling. You walk out feeling more broken, more stressed because you've taken the time to go. You've probably had to take a couple of hours off work for this 15-minute appointment and you got really nowhere.
Symptoms are treated like they're superficial, they're just on the top layer. And really, there's a lot that's gone on underneath. And you're right, a listening ear, sometimes that's enough to take half of the burden off, to feel that you're important and that you're not just making these things up.
Especially in the case of like this client that you had seen today or this patient who everything's coming back normal. All the tests are normal, but she knows that there's something wrong. And so now she's going home or should she have been seeing a traditional Western GP, would have been going home going, well, there's nothing wrong with me. I must be making this up. And then feeling terrible inside. But to have someone like yourself say, "Okay, well, here's XYZ that you can explore, and I hear what you're saying."
We're really, really good position where we can learn so quickly. I mean, look at us. We're on different sides of the world and we're sat here talking about the same thing, holistic health.
I wanted to maybe pick your brain a little bit about how those of you who are going into winter and us for later next year, how we can better kind of prepare for the winter space, build our body's immunity up when we're coming into that.
The first thing is to boost your immunity, to keep your immune system health, is high doses of vitamin D. I would recommend that everybody takes it. In the UK in particular, I mean, I can speak for here in the winter, we don't get enough sun. People stay inside because the weather isn't great. So you're not getting the very basic. And we have an increased number of viruses around in the winter. Historically, we always have. So it's cold and flu season. So around 1 or 2 months before, we should start to take vitamin D. And the dose that I tend to like is 4,000 units a day. It's a good high dose. If you have excess of it, let's say you've got enough vitamin D in your system and you just need topping up a little bit more, whatever is extra will just be urinated out. It's not going to be a problem to your system. In addition to that, I would also recommend magnesium because it helps the vitamin D to be absorbed. It also helps with relaxing your muscles, getting you out of that kind of high tense or high stress body situation. And it helps for you to get a rested sleep because rest is really important as well. We tend to find in the winter phase here, people get exceptionally busy with Christmas parties, going out, socializing, working full time still, catering to their children, and then trying to fight cold and flu. So the body's main way of trying to recover is always to have good rest. And that's where the magnesium is quite important. Vitamin C, 1,000 milligrams a day. That's vitally important. It helps keep your immune system strong, mops up loads of antioxidants that are just floating around. But to bear in mind with all of these, it's important that you have supplements that are clean, limited fillers and, all of the nasty additives that they put in. By the time you finish digesting all of those, you lose half of the strength of the actual supplement.
Sometimes you hear that they've got sugar and things added into them. Is that's not necessary, right? You're not using the sugar to do anything other than fill the capsule? Yeah.
I mean, you see these vitamins that are for children or sometimes even adults, they put sugar with them because they want them to taste better. You got to really think about it. Be careful with your choices because if in every instance, as communities, we're saying reduce your sugar intake, we definitely wouldn't recommend it with your with your vitamins. It's not a good idea. We just destroy the gut microbiome with all of these ultra processed things. And that's the next item that I would say is really important for keeping your immunity during these winter months. A good probiotic, if buying a probiotic is not an option that you want to take, if you don't know which one to get, you can make your own kefir yogurt, which is like a fermented dairy product. And it's really, really simple. You can Google it. I do it every day. And I've just found that it's kept me so well. And I have like more energy because everything seems to be just working really well together, A really good sign of emotional blockages, energy blockages, physical symptom is to be constipated. And your body will tell you that first, that it doesn't feel comfortable. Something's not right by changing your digestive habits. So when you have a change in your digestive habit, look around, like be intrigued. Why has this happened? What is it that's changed? Am I more tense? Am I more stressed? Has somebody upset me? Have I suppressed an emotion and I've not been clear with how I really feel? Or have I just eaten something that doesn't suit me? But your digestive motions are a really big sign into your health. And it's the first indicator of your health as well. So yeah, probiotics are great for that. Absolutely brilliant.
Because you get asked that. I mean, I've been asked that lots of times as the doctors. I may not have been asked some other important questions, but it's always like, are you still going to the toilet? Are you peeing frequently? How often are you, going to the toilet, right? And You're right. Our health manifests in so many ways. And I like to always say to people, if you can start journaling, or if you're not going to write, if you can have 5 minutes a day where you're just sitting with yourself, not on your phone, and reflecting on your day, thinking, how did I feel today? What did I do today? What didn't I like today? And just reflecting and looking inward and then examining your external environment, it just helps you notice things so much more and so much, more proactively than, oh, I haven't actually spent time on my own or thought about my own health and wellness and life. And now all these things are popping up.
Yeah. Yeah, you're completely right. Our lives are very busy now. We're always on the go, and having even a minute of
Mm,
reflection for some people is, it's unheard of. So this is something that is so important. Just sit with yourself and ask yourself, how am I? How am I really? And let your body tell you, and your feelings tell you, and your emotions tell you. And then navigate from there. If you've only got a minute, you park it to the side, you deal with it another day, right? But the fact that you've even given yourself the time, it shows that you value yourself. And you can only look after your health if you value yourself, right? Because otherwise you put yourself at the back of the line.
absolutely. And what about zinc?
Yeah, zinc is also very good. Zinc is a great one to have as well. There's no particular strength that, we express for zinc, or I do. The only thing I would say is not part of a multivitamin. It should be zinc on its own. All of
Okay.
these, ideally, they want to be individual supplements, because people will often say, I'm taking a multivit, is that enough? Well, no, not really. They're in tiny, tiny quantities, each ingredient. And by the time you've digested it, if it's a tablet form, you've lost half of it. So we're not really
Right.
getting what we need. It's just important to remember all of these points, that they should be, individual tablets or capsules, liquid either, whichever form you would prefer.
I know as a liquid, some of it tastes. I used to have to take iron supplements before I was properly diagnosed with celiac disease. And I was on it for a long time, years, and they never looked into why. They just said, take it. So anyway, we
Yeah.
got past all that. But I remember it tasting horrible unless my iron was really, really low. And then it was the most delicious thing to me. Interesting, wasn't it? It was so strange because it was horrible. And I still took it because it made all the difference.
But you see, right? Your body tells you what you need. There's such intelligence in our own bodies. It can heal so well, it can take over. It can take over everything. There can
Yeah.
be illness and we can figure it out. We're designed for that. But your body tells you that it needs iron, and it makes you like it when you really need it. And it's so important to remember these points, because we focus a lot with our thoughts and our brain and our mind, right? It's all up here, you know, and really the rest is telling you so much. And that's a big part of the way that I work, with the somatic experiencing. The first part of the consultation is we go into the body, we take some breaths, we settle ourselves down. We try to get to a baseline of some kind of regulation with our nervous system, even if it's just for a moment. And then we scan from head to toe.
Oh,
Where do you feel the tensions? Where do you feel a pain? Where's your attention directed to? And it's actually quite amazing what comes up. If you're chronically stressed, you're always producing and secreting cortisol and all these other stress hormones, which keep your muscles like this, tense. If you feel a little pinch, when you're like this, you won't even notice, right? So what happens is you keep working through it and working through it, and that pinch gets bigger and bigger. People say all the time that they've woken up one morning and their back has just gone and they have no idea why. Very often we can put it back to something maybe 6 months ago, even a year ago, but they ignored it then and carried on ignoring these little pinches until the body just said, okay, you haven't listened to me. I've whispered to you so many times and you've ignored me. So here's my scream.
this actually happened to me a few years ago. It was COVID, and I was still working full time. My job amped up, and it was stressful. I was away from my family. Everyone was in lockdown. I was driving around on the roads to get to work because I was allowed, but nobody else was. So that was weird and eerie. So it was all, this mind mess. But I was also studying full time. And I was studying via my previous university in Canada. So all my classes were at night. So that was a lot. And that was going to be okay, provided I wasn't working full time in the day because I could sleep in. But that changed. And so I was tired, I was stressed. There was all sorts of stuff going on. And I went out the back. We have this lovely area where I study outside. And we have this big outdoor umbrella. I roll it up. I'm getting ready to put it out, and it breaks, and it smacks me in the face just across the eye. It just smacks me, and it's really light, but it hit me really hard, and I thought, "God, that really, really hurt." Like, I didn't knock me out, but it made me stop and just pause for a few minutes, and so okay, just shake it off, you have to study. The next or that night, I started with this horrible, horrible headache. The next day, I could hardly see. I had a moderate to severe concussion.
Wow.
So I ended up going to the hospital because the headache was that bad, and that's what they said to me, and so for almost 2 months, I spent a few weeks on the couch, couldn't open my eyes, there was no TV, I couldn't look at my phone, I couldn't read, I couldn't do any of my exams. It was the strangest thing, it was just thinking. When you hurt, when you're working out your muscles or you feel your muscles, when they're growing or they're working really hard, you can feel every bit of your muscle. You don't really feel your brain. I could feel my brain every time I would think. And I guess it was that damage that was done and how it was repairing. It was a horrible experience. And that smack, you know how you say slap you in the face to wake you up? I literally got a smack in the face, and I say from the universe, because I was ignoring signs of being really stressed out, and I had been losing a lot of weight and I couldn't figure out why, but I was ignoring all these signs. And so I got the concussion, and then a couple of months later, I was diagnosed with Graves' disease. And I was like, "You were ignoring so much." So I learned a lot from that experience, and I will never forget my habits of looking after myself and doing all the things that I would have, I used to do again. But this is what I'm getting at is sometimes you need you wait until you get this major wake up call or this major trauma or this major illness before paying attention. And if I had have taken time, if I hadn't been working all day and studying all night and trying to sleep when I could, I probably would have thought a little bit more about why I was losing weight and not blamed it on stress or, any of the signs uh, before the umbrella broke and smacked me in the face, right?
And, you were really lucky to have a wake up call. Unfortunately, it was a painful one, but the majority of them are. We only tend to make changes and shifts when something big happens, right? But the thing as well is that it was really nice that you mentioned, the universe is giving you a sign. I think that's something that's really important as well, like, to maintain the spirituality in understanding ourselves, our physical beings, as well as our energy. It's really important because so much is dictated about energies all around us, and I'm a big believer of the universe and one energy and how impactful it is. But I mean, on a smaller scale, the energy of people around you that makes such a difference to your health. It's so important to surround yourself with people who are going to be able to provide you with great energy. And I'm not talking about this really positive spiritual bypassing where it's like, I don't think about things that are negative. It's not that, because that's not realistic and that's suppression of emotions, which leads to more problems later. But it's more being with like minded people who are good to one another, because that in itself can be enough to lift you. A lot of elderly patients start to suffer with severe dementia. And there's huge studies that show that it's linked to loneliness. And that's why after COVID and lockdown, we still are suffering with a big surge of rates of dementia, because a lot of elderly patients they had to be on their own. There was no other option. And that has a deep, deep impact on our welfare. So, who you surround yourself with, as well as the modalities that you use to heal yourself, are really, really important. If I go away and I do, 5 yoga practices a week and I'm taking all of my vitamins and I eat really well, but the person I spend the most time with is extremely depressing and puts me down at every moment, there's only so high I can get lifted, you know?
I completely agree. And when you start to pay attention to these things, sometimes you can walk into a room, and I'll start here with the analogy of you can cut attention with a knife. That's the energy in the room. That's the energy people are giving off. You can sometimes when you're with your close friends, you can tell when, your couple of friends have had an argument that day because they're not necessarily being mean or unkind to each other. They're probably just annoyed. But as their friend, you can tell that their energy is a bit off, even though they might not be outwardly doing anything. Or when you walk into, a public space and you feel a bit uneasy, that's the energy of somebody else in that room or something that has just occurred in that room that's manifested there. And it's giving you the signs, hey, there's something just that's not quite right. And if you're uneasy, just leave.
And pretty much every step of everything we've spoken about today is really about awareness, awareness of your body, awareness of your emotions, awareness of other people's energy, awareness of your own. Yeah. And the more aware you become, I'd say really by slowing down. That's the easiest way to become aware. And I'm not talking about a really deep practice, literally just slowing down and paying attention rather than having so many things going on, including your phone and the TV and cooking and cleaning and doing your work. How aware could you be of the small, intricate details of your own body and your own mind if it's completely flooded with stimulation all the time? But that ability to walk in the room and sense that something's not right or feel the energy and be like, wow, I want to be here. The ability to do that is all about awareness. And, yogic practices, that's what you're striving for. And these are, thousand-year-old practices saying that your health will be better if you become more aware. And watching people over the last 15 years, I can say I believe it for sure. And practicing myself, yeah, definitely. I can pick up an illness with myself, within the first couple of hours of it coming on, and I can react to it and then respond to it. Whereas before, I would get to the point where I'm knocked off my feet, and then I'm like, oh, now I've got to do something about it. But really, my body just wants to rest for 10 days. So I have to lay in bed for 10 days, right?
It's a big shift when you start to take on this, mindset and approach. And I think what people need to realize is it just start small. Start by taking, even before bed, turn off your phone, turn off the TV, and ask your partner or get the kids settled away to just give you, again, 5 minutes. Just again, start with 1 minute, like you had said, of just some self reflection. Start small. And then as you start to do that, you'll want to do more. You'll naturally add on more time or discover something about yourself that you might like to try. Maybe, a new hobby that's something that's really grounding you or giving you more rest or better health. And it's all about just taking those small steps.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on this path of taking care of myself, like really trying to take care of myself. And it goes in waves, right?
Mm.
Like you said, okay, so you're taking your vitamins and then you run out and maybe you forgot to take them for a while. And it's only when you get the symptoms again, you start again, right?
Yeah.
So, I've been on that wave many, many times and I'm still on there. There's some months where I'm really, I'm on it and I'm doing really well. And there's others where I drop off. But I've been on this path for about 10 years. Yeah, and it's ever continuing.
Hmm.
And you've got to be patient. But I look at myself now compared to even 2 years ago, and I can see that there's a difference and there's a positive difference. And it's such a nice feeling when you reflect and think, okay, yeah, well, this is doing me some good. It's just that we have to be patient and see it as a journey, a lifelong lifestyle, not just a quick band-aid.
It's not linear. You see those memes or those little characters where you want the journey to look like this, but it really looks like this,
Yeah. Yeah.
And it really is like that. And it's okay to fall back and it's okay to, for there to be hiccups. And it's about your mindset and how you're approaching these situations when they happen and
Yeah.
really trying not to be frustrated with yourself for not, you know, being perfect or, not always being your best. And you're literally only human and there's nothing more expected of you than just trying to better yourself a little bit for yourself, not for someone else.
Exactly. I think that's the difference, right? It's got to be for yourself. One of my yoga teachers used to say, if you can manage to do that back bend and get it exactly as you want, then what happens after that? You know, you want to get to the end, but what happens? And I was like, yeah, it's a fair point. I don't need to rush that. And if it happens, that's part of the whole process. That's the fun part, because once you've got to the end, okay, well, it's done now, you know?
Jaspreet, thank you so much for sharing all of your insights today. I really appreciate it. And I'd love for you to share how people who are listening can get in touch with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's been really wonderful speaking with you. All of my consultations and availability is shown online on wholebodypharmacist.com. There's also a WhatsApp phone number on there, so you can send me a message if you ever have a question that you would like to discuss prior to a consultation. I'm part of the virtual digital world now, so I'm pretty much available all the time.
Well, thank you so much for offering that space for people. It's so important.
Thank you.
And for everyone listening, I'll share all of Jaspreet's links and resources in the show notes. If this resonated with you, I would love it if you would like and subscribe to the show and share this with just one person who you think could benefit from what we talked about today. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining me on the Holistic Health Show and trusting me to guide you towards proactive healthcare. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform and get ready to embark on an incredible journey toward holistic wellness. Until next time, be well and stay holistic.